Welcome back to the Dr. Mo Show. Today I have Dawn Baker, who is a physician and amazing inspirer and coach. I want to hear about all the amazing things that you have done to enhance your career as a doctor and give back. And really, what I consider give back to the profession by helping the rest of us get better.
Well, Dr. Mo, thank you for having me on the show. Appreciate it. And as far as me, I am a practicing anesthesiologist. I would consider myself to be a multi-passionate physician in person. I practice part-time so that I can do some other things that I really care about. And those are both personal and professional. So I do writing, I have written a book, I do podcasting like you do. I do life coaching for physicians and professionals in the areas of work-life balance and career transition. And then on the personal front, I have a lot of interests that I really like to keep up with. We have a off-grid 80-acre homestead in the mountains that we live on, and we're always doing projects. And I homeschool my daughter. I am really into fitness. I do a lot of weightlifting, a lot of walking and hiking. I teach yoga in a local studio that's nearby. And I just like to hang out and be with my family.
And that's a lot of things that I just like to hang out and be with my family. That space that I hear and that I feel with those words, most doctors don't have that. Most people don't have that, especially like you said, with high achieving professionals. We have a drive that it's a lot of times hard for us to pull back and say, it's okay for me to just enjoy hanging out.
Absolutely. And doing nothing. And that doesn't mean that you aren't a productive part of society, if you will, if you're doing nothing.
How long have you, this is a personal question, because this is all selfish. Some of these questions are like, nope, I want to know. Have you always homeschooled your daughter?
We have actually. She's 9, so she's still in grade school. And we set out knowing that when she was born and she was in the preschool ages, that we wanted to go that route. We were looking around the time that she was 4 or 5. She did go to some preschool. I mean, that's not really school, but she, had some opportunities where she had classmates, if you will. And then around the time that she was in school, we were looking at changing our lifestyle to something that was a little different. And right around that time was also COVID. And so there were a few different options. It was like RV around the world or around the country, travel around the world, house sit. We thought about buying a sailboat and living aboard a sailboat. And so all of those things are really only facilitated by a homeschool type situation. But a lot of the travel was a problem with COVID. So for a little while, we were trying to figure out what kind of lifestyle we were going to do. And we ended up starting to look at ranches and homesteads and larger properties. And that is something that my husband had always had a dream of owning. His grandparents had owned a 100-acre farm in New York State, and he was always interested in that idea. But we kind of were thinking about it in a more far off realm of like maybe when we're retired, if you will, we'll do this. And then it just became something that was more of an opportunity right then. And so, yes, our daughter has always gone to homeschool. However, a lot of people don't understand that homeschooling is not just like sitting at a desk with books for 8 hours. She goes to classes, she goes to co-ops, she has clubs and things that she takes part in.
We're actually looking at my son's 12 and his school ends at 8th grade. So we're going to have to make some decisions anyway. And with my life the way it is now, we do have that kind of flexibility and mobility. And I don't necessarily want to travel so much. It's just the freedom, right? I mean, my whole freedom to shift is based on your ability and desire to create the life you want to live. Like you said, with hobbies, with family, with being productive and working. And when you said retirement, I have such a hard time with that word as well, because I tell people, choose relevance over retirement. Why wouldn't you want to do a job that you could do forever? Like, that's fun. And I don't mean 80 hours a week, right? That's not what I mean.
I'm all about sustainable working. I try to help people stay in their profession, but
Same.
with some different caveats and different unique work-life balance situations so that they can do it in a sustainable way that still brings them fulfillment but doesn't burn them out.
100%. Yes. When I started looking at your material, I'm like, oh yeah, we are really aligned because I mean the world needs doctors. I mean, let's just call it what it is. We need healthcare providers and we can't all leave. We can't all work enough. And this is what I often find. Tell me if you have the same, where doctors are like, listen, I'm just going to work my 10 years more and then retire. And that's, they fall off the cliff and there they go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a huge amount of all or nothing thinking in medicine. It's part of the culture of how we're trained too. It's like, this is right, this is wrong. And there are obviously a lot of shades of gray in the middle there. But people think, well, if I can't do the job exactly the way that everybody else does it and the golden path, then I need to just get out. I need to like make a bunch of money in real estate and then get out. You're not necessarily going to be fulfilled with that either. I mean, I have clients who have done the real estate thing and they're like, well, I don't really actually like it that much. I don't find that I have purpose through that.
I agree 100%. And I think that, if you look at the studies on what creates a fulfilling career or a fulfilling life, really, it's, because you need the autonomy, you need to make a difference. Money is always nice. I mean, let's be serious, because someone's got to pay the bills. And I know that we have this sort of almost, it's a dichotomy because we're expected to provide healthcare for free by a lot of patients and a lot of systems. But then on the flip side, they complain because we all golf on Wednesdays. If you guys can't hear me, if you're not looking at the video podcast, that was air quotes because no one's golfing on Wednesdays anymore. The medical profession has changed. And, we're stuck in this system, like you said, the golden path where and that's in any profession, really, right? You go to college, you get a degree, you work for a bunch of years, then you retire and die. Yeah. I'm like, that sounds awful. But that's the factory worker mentality. And that's what we're still stuck in almost. It doesn't have to be that way. You can do things however you want.
Yeah, absolutely. But the hard thing is that you have to cultivate some confidence and courage to be able to be different in your field. And when people see different, especially in medicine, and this also harkens back to our training days, that's a threat. And it was not okay to be different, when we're doing training. And if you stick out as a medical student or a resident, you could be penalized.
That's really interesting. I had a med student ask me this morning on a public live. She said, do I have to do residency? And I said, I think you should. And I wish I would have said what you just said to me in a way. I wish I could have said, you've got to conform to the system to get to the end. I would recommend actually practicing in person full-time for 3 to 5 years, bare minimum, because you need to, in my opinion, you need to understand what that feels like, because, and you can, in the meantime, start cultivating what's going to happen at 5 years. That's the sweet spot. If I can catch people 3 to 5 years out of residency, they're not crispy, they're not burned out yet. They're like, oh no, I'm fine. And that's the problem. They're all like, I know, I'm fine. I'm like, no, the best time to grow is when you don't have to. So start cultivating those things now while you have the energy. So then 5 years down the road, when you're like, I got to get out now, you're prepared. And you're not even going to get to that point, right? If you had cultivated, and I don't know about your career, but for me, if I had cultivated what I have now, I would have been part-time still, I think. Because
yeah, I definitely had a vision for my life. This is my second career. I actually was an engineer, and I did not enjoy the cubicle lifestyle. And I didn't enjoy the fact that I was confined to practicing a specific niche of engineering in a very specific geographical area. And so I turned to medicine after doing a lot of travel and opening my eyes to this entire world. And I thought, well, if I chose my specialty correctly and my workplace correctly, I will be able to have time freedom and location freedom. And so I had this idea basically that I was going to work part-time and still fulfill my other outside of work passions, which I didn't know was going to involve all this other stuff, like the writing and the speaking and the coaching and stuff. That just kind of came with my experiences. But I definitely had that vision, and it took a little while to come full circle, because I definitely got caught on what I call the treadmill of achievement, where you are awarded, you're rewarded your good work with more work, and you're told that you're doing great, and so you need to do more, you need to take on more things, say yes to more things. And I ended up almost going down a niche specialty path in anesthesiology, where I was going to be confined to a geographical area, exactly which is what I was trying to get out of. And the thing that actually made me wake up from it was a health scare. I had a cancer scare, I had a benign tumor removed from my brain, and that experience is what led me to wake up and go back to my original vision and just kind of go back to basics.
I think that's incredible that you had that vision. Well, had the wherewithal to have that vision going into your career. I was an athletic trainer before I was a physician, but I was very young still. I didn't have that. I didn't have that. And I kind of thought I would do the traditional path. I would eventually go part-time. I started talking to my superiors about this about 3 years before I did go part-time, that I said, if I had just a little bit more bandwidth, I bet I could do my job better. Like I just needed that. I didn't know what I was craving, but I knew there was something else that I was tired. I loved my job. I love emergency medicine. I loved that damn job. It was hurting me, don't get me wrong, but I loved it. And because I'm obstinate, anyone who's listening who knows me knows I'm not peaceful on the inside as a general rule. I have to work to get there. And I just think it's amazing that you had that wherewithal from the beginning, but you also almost lost it. You fell into that, but look, here's this great opportunity. And your brain is like, oh, look at that. No, don't forget the vision. Hold true to that vision. I'm just impressed that you did. I think that's incredible.
Well, thank you. I think that part of it has to do with the fact that I was a little older. So I knew myself a little bit better than some people that are going straight into medical school, like from undergrad, say. And I had done a ton of traveling. I was really into rock climbing at the time with my husband. We had traveled the world doing rock climbing. And so that had really formed a value system in me. And I was already really knowing who I was. And yet I still had a lot of space to grow. But if someone who really did have a strong value system at the time, could get lost on the treadmill of achievement, anyone can.
And that's a good point, right? You had a great vision. You had a map, a mental roadmap. You still stepped off the path almost a little bit. That looks shiny over there. Check that out. So for those doctors out there who are stuck in the middle, and I say stuck, they're not stuck. They only feel like they're stuck. If they're in this traditional career, say me 5 years ago, working full-time nights in the ER, loving it, level 2 trauma center, my hospital, still love the hospital. I still do stuff for them on committees and such because I still love the hospital. So if they have that, how would you, because like you said, different is not honored, is not revered in medicine. How do they have that courage to change?
Well, there are a few different elements that, in my mind, make up having a lasting, authentic confidence. You have it in you to develop that. Like everyone can develop a level of self-confidence that can help them to get through these kind of awkward situations. Now, I think most people think that you're born with confidence or, like a certain type of specialty or a certain persona in medicine is really a confident one. Like maybe you see like a surgeon or something like that and you think that person's super confident, but you can develop a confidence by practicing some really basic elements. And in my mind, those are in 4 different areas. And the first one is learning and understanding yourself. And that is going to help you in so many ways. It's going to help you with your decision making. It's going to help you know what you want. It's going to help you just take care of yourself. So what I'm talking about here is knowing how you manage energy in your body. So like what things drain energy from you that you're already doing at work, what things help you gain energy, and they can be work related. Like what things do you love when you go to work, or what things like when you go home do you do to replenish your energy? So doing an energy audit is really good. Learning more things about your personality and your nature. Are you introverted? Are you extroverted? How do you respond to expectations? Things like that. So when I coach people, really take them into a lot of self-knowledge and introspection and reflection. The other big part of this is that I think if you're in a period where you feel stuck, you really do need to step back and take a little time for yourself. You need to have some alone time and be by yourself and think about these things. And I don't mean with your phone. I mean like you really need to like take some walks or take a day where it's just like a self day. Maybe you can take a vacation, maybe you can take a weekend, but you need some time in solitude. So that's the first element. The second one is an element that is really comprising lots of different mental games. So learning about how to analyze your thoughts, learning that your thoughts aren't necessarily true, that we have these thinking patterns that keep us stuck. Like we talked about, all or nothing thinking, or guilt, or like feeling like a victim, feeling like we don't have the ability to change, things like that. There are a lot of tools that you can use to learn to analyze your thoughts. And one of the things I really like is called emotional agility. And so that is learning how to ride the wave of your emotions, like being a surfer of your emotions and not letting the emotions get the better of you, not letting yourself identify with your emotions like this is bad and I'm bad and this is just a horrible situation. It's like, well, this is a season. I'm feeling bad today. That's what it is. It's just data. So then the third element for me is doing hard things and remembering that you can do hard things. Everybody who's listening to this, everyone who is in medicine or in a high octane profession knows how to do hard things because they've already done it. But they forget and they aren't used to doing something hard for the sake of the actual challenge. And so I get people to take on a challenge again, and it can be something personal or it can be something like learning a new skill at work. But a lot of times it's really helpful for a person to just take on something new, like they're going to learn a new sport, or they're going to go take lessons in something, or they're going to go, if they really don't like being social, they're going to like go and join like a hiking group and they know nobody, and that's like very challenging for them, right? And then the last thing is embracing the journey and really just remembering and shifting your perspective to like, it's not about the peak. It's not about the thing that you're trying to get to. It's about every little step along the way. And it sounds really cliche, but people forget about the small micro wins and steps that they make constantly. And when you shift your perspective back to that, you can feel, a little bit more accomplished and not like you're stuck because you're making small strides.
I love that framework. And, it's a lot of Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, the gap and the gain, right? If it's like looking down the hill, look how far we came.
Yeah.
Like you said, everyone listening here has done hard things. We know. And I think part of it too is we get tired of doing hard things, right? Can I do something that's easy? But the problem is it's not the way our brain works. Michael Hirsch calls it the physician personality, right? Because like you said, it's the achiever, it's the achievement based, and that's kind of just the way we are. But you can gear that toward achieving things that do feed your soul. They don't have to be someone else's timeline, someone else's agenda. And I'm not saying be a complete rebel. I am a rule follower to the core. I mean, that's why this shift was so hard for me to go into these other areas. I mean, I'm not sure. Like, so, you said you were an engineer and now you do anesthesia, which is obviously we're any medical profession. Like, listen, you got to do the things you have to do, right? Like this is it is what it is. You're within very defined guidelines for safety. So is it hard for you to embrace those other things? Or like you said, because you had experienced so much that you really knew that those core things had to be in your wheelhouse? Like when you started to write, for example, how did that come about? How did the writing, the speaking, tell me how that came about? Was it organic? People asked you, or was it like, no, I just got a message, I have to give it out?
It was really more the latter. I have always loved to write. Even though I was an engineer, I was actually writing technical reports as part of the job that I did. And I would edit the things that my managers wrote. They would like started coming to me, being like, hey, can you read this? And so I became known that, that was something that I really liked. And I knew that about myself early on as well. So I think self-awareness here is really key. And when I was in residency and when I had these health challenges, I knew that I needed to write about it. And right toward the end of my residency, I started writing blog posts about my experience being a patient, my experience with burnout, which actually manifested or chicken and egg, like a full-blown illness, right? It was masking itself as burnout. Did the burnout exacerbate the illness, or was the illness always there? Who knows, right? So that was part of the discussion too, and the interesting thing that I wanted to write about. I knew I wanted to write a book at some point before I died. And it took a lot of years of doing that blog and then going to conferences. And I randomly got asked to be on a panel of bloggers at a large financial conference. And from there, I started deciding that I wanted to challenge myself. See, I was already kind of like doing this whole confidence framework that I have now started to put together. And I have a course on this with those 4 elements, but like I didn't realize what they were at the time. But now thinking back 5-6 years ago, I decided that I was going to challenge myself by public speaking. It wasn't something I ever did. And so I started applying for conferences, and sometimes it would be something small like a grand rounds, or I went to a state medical society and gave a talk on burnout. I wanted to share the things that I had learned about neglecting to take care of myself and neglecting to really pay attention to myself during residency when I was really sick. And then it blossomed into someone asked me at a conference if I did coaching. And then I'm like, no, like, what's that? I didn't even know about that, and it started to become a thing around 2020 where people were really getting more interested in it in a physician realm. Like, I think it's been around for a really long time in corporate world. But so I started training in that, and that was how things evolved. And I don't regret any of it. I mean, I honestly don't even regret getting sick. I have to take medications every day of my life for 3 times a day. I have to get MRIs of my head every 2 years. I have things that are a pain in the butt that I have to deal with it, but it's so much fine of a trade-off, compared to not being here and not sharing this stuff and doing these things. I mean, it's just, I love my life. It's so fun.
And how many doctors out there can say that? I love my life. It's so fun.
True.
And any doctor, any high achiever, any professional, any human, isn't that the goal?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that what we're striving for? Isn't that, I guess for a long time, you don't think it's possible, right? Heads down, you're learning, you're training, you saw your spouse 3 weeks ago. It's to say, my husband actually is still full-time emergency medicine. And we were in a meeting with a couple other people in my company I'm bringing them on. We're starting a new facet of my practice. And he said, I watch her go to bed at the same time every night now. I mean, I worked nights for 15 years. I love nights. But I live life in the real world, right? Daylight is when my body wants to be awake, no matter how I slice it. Was it rebellion? Probably yes. So, but I loved working nights, and my husband's, I watch her do these things, and people joke about entrepreneurs, right? The only people that trade a 40-hour work week for an 80-hour work week and are 10 times as happy.
Yeah.
But somebody asked me yesterday, one of my coaching clients asked me yesterday, well, so how many hours a day do you work? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know, because most of what I do, I would do for free because it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Isn't that the goal?
Yes. I feel the same way.
Like, I have no idea how much I work. I mean, I guess I had a meeting to meet with a lab company, so I guess that's work. Like I don't know.
Or if you're thinking about I write notes constantly, or I'm listening to a podcast for research, and then I'm doing content creation, basically.
Right.
But that's work too, kind of.
I guess that's work, right? To me, it's fun. Like, you're reading a book on something in business, because, like, Lord knows I'm not the best business person out there. I mean, thank goodness my husband's actually coming into the company, because I'm willing to give away things for nothing. So, but when you're studying business, or when you're studying strategies, or studying, how to improve your coaching style, it's a never-ending process, because we love to learn. I mean, that to me, that's not work. This is play. This is fun.
Absolutely. And I really feel like I'm on a mission to help people give themselves permission to do this. Really, a lot of us don't remember that first of all, to qualify, most of my clients, like 99% of them, they're not in training. I have had people that are different degrees out of training, like several years out of training, they're mid-career, or sometimes they're new out of training. Like, maybe I had a couple that were like, 1 year out of training, 2 years out of training. And so it doesn't matter how long people have been out. Sometimes they're still in that mode of, I call it residency mode, but it's like you're in the mode that you are worried about what everybody thinks of you, and you don't want to rock the boat, and you don't want to say, like, hey, I want this thing that is not on the menu and it is not on the golden path. And it's okay to want that, and to ask for it, and to facilitate your life to get that. But you're not in residency anymore, so no one has control over you that, is like holding your degree over your head or your certification over your head.
And that's absolutely incredible. For me, I didn't realize that. It's so funny because you say it outwardly, and I'm like, no, we're adults with jobs and bosses, but we're still asking for a hall pass like we're in 7th grade.
Yes.
And I mean, and the same thing, it's permission. I tell people, I can't make you change, but I can promise you I won't be a crab in the bucket pulling you back down.
Yeah.
And that's, at this level, even with physician coaches, this is why I do the podcast. I love meeting other coaches because we all have the same goal. We want to make the world a better place. Just in whatever that looks like for you. That might, Michael Hirsch still practices full time. He was one of the first physicians I interviewed. And what a pleasure. What a gift that was. He still practices full time. He does do 4 days a week now. I don't know if his days are long. Who knows, right? Like, what is full time? It depends on the profession. Depends on, full time is whatever you want. We're adults. We don't need a hall pass. So yes, the cat is going to make an appearance. If you want to go to watchdrmo.com, check out the podcast because this is how podcasts go.
Because there she is.
And we always have, mom's home. And here we are. If someone wants to get in contact with you, now I coach primarily physicians and healthcare providers, but you coach professionals across all realms. So how would someone get in contact with you, get a hold of your material, just kind of get started exploring, not needing that permission slip?
Yeah. The easiest way to do so is to go to my website. It's called practicebalance.com. Life is a practice of balance, and we're always practicing our balance. So that's how I chose the name way back when I was talking about, in residency. I chose that. So it's a long time blog. And then I have enhanced the website with, my podcast interviews are on there. You can get my book on there. You can read about my coaching style and my strategies. And you can also schedule a consultation call with me. If you would like to just join my newsletter, there's a pop-up that comes up. And if you put your email in, you'll get a free core values exercise. That's the current thing that's on there. And I would love to have you.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you to the listeners for your time and attention. It is not going unnoticed, never is. So we will see you next time on Freedom to Shift.